Aloha, and welcome to Coffee with Conversation for Well-Being. I am your host, and I am an intuitive relationship empowerment coach. What is that? Well, intuitive means that I use all of my facilities. I'm also a psychic intuitive. So when I work with people, I am trying to look deeper into whatever the issues are and how to solve them, looking at it in a more holistic view than if I were just using my brain and my education. Second part of intuitive relationship empowerment coach is relationship. And relationship encompasses all relationships. And that includes your relationship with yourself, which is the most important relationship you will ever have. Second most important relationship, in my view, is your relationship with the universe, God, the all that is, the greater power, whatever you want to call it. That is your second most important relationship. Because I often find that without that relationship, people will feel empty, lost, and they have to get their bearings based on another person, which is unhealthy, versus based on themselves and their faith. Faith doesn't necessarily mean religious faith. I just want to make that clear. Often, when I work with people, familial relationships come up. Your relationship with your family is a very, very important relationship. Not that your relationship with your family, if your family is toxic, needs to be, all cream and roses. However, knowing what that relationship is and how it affects you will help you create more healthy relationships in the future. Then empowerment. Empowerment is giving you the best possible basis and foundation for success moving into the future. Success is very subjective, and we will suss out what real success looks like for you. But what I want to give you are actionable ways to come to success. If you don't know what success looks like, you're never going to get there. It's just like if you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? I'm here to give guidance and ask the right questions to try and steer you in the right direction, or in the direction that is the most empowering, the most healing, and the most healthy for you. Now that we know what that is, an intuitive relationship empowerment coach, now we could talk about our topic. Our topic is the 5 requirements for relationship repair. So we're starting right off with a relationship that is broken in some way. That's where we're starting this particular video with. How do relationships get broken, and what does that mean that a relationship is damaged or broken? Relationships are damaged through dishonesty. They can become damaged through misunderstanding. They can be damaged through misunderstanding. From what I can tell, most of what happens in relationships comes through your communication style and the way that you are going to move from one place into another. For instance, we have assumptions. We assume that if X happens, Y is going to happen. But not everybody has the same X and Y. How do we know if we're compatible? We talk about it. We discuss it. We know what our X is and we know what our Y is. We know what we're looking for and we know where we're coming from. For the purposes of today, what we're going to be talking about is betrayal. So this is something where one or both parties has made a decision and chosen to betray the other in some way. In a marriage or a romantic relationship, that can be cheating on someone. In a friendship or a familial relationship, that could be breaking a promise or being untrustworthy. So we're talking about betrayal as damaging to a relationship. How do you come back from betrayal? In order to come back from betrayal, you need to recognize that both of you were involved. So if there's any kind of betrayal, you need to look to see what was your part and what was their part. And if there's a third person, possibly what their part is. But if they're not going to be part of the relationship in any way, like they're not a sister, a brother, a cousin, or a close friend, or somebody who has been on the periphery of this relationship, then you don't really need to worry about them. The one thing I can guarantee you is that blaming the third party instead of looking at your part and your partner's part, or the second part of the relationship, their part, doesn't get you anywhere. That's not going to heal anything. It doesn't solve anything. Making the third party the villain does help you triangulate and makes you feel better sometimes. However, it doesn't heal anything. It's not going to stop whoever the cheater was or whoever the betrayer was from doing the same thing again, because you're not looking at what is the foundation. What caused this to happen? What made you think that that was a good idea? Because let's face it, whether you are being betrayed or you are doing the betraying, and in this context, I'm going to make it easy and say that it's a cheater. By cheating on your significant other, there are lies involved. There's having to coordinate, especially if it's more than a one-shot deal, something that happened one time. Something is going on in the relationship that is going to create this. However, it can be that one part of the relationship is a person who is not trustworthy, or who is, they may have a compulsion. There are a lot of things that can be going on there. And that's why, as we move forward, if you look to find the foundation and you figure that out, then you will know if you can move on or not. If you cannot find what the foundation is, or if one or the both of you is unwilling to look at your part in what occurred, then you cannot move on from there. It's going to cycle around and happen again. It takes two to have a relationship, and it takes two people to heal a relationship. So if we have a damaged relationship, why would we want to save it? Well, it could be the time that you put into it. It could be that up until this point, this person has been trustworthy. They have been healthy. They have been a part of your foundation, or maybe you've been that for them. Maybe the betrayal is something that makes you both realize how important you are to one another, because maybe neither one of you was paying enough attention to the relationship or was taking the relationship seriously enough. These are all things that we need to think about. When you ask why, that is a very important question to ask if you're going to maintain the relationship or try to repair the relationship, because repairing a relationship takes time, energy, and a lot of emotion. If you're not willing to put in the time, the energy, or the emotion, it's not worth even trying to do. And as I said, both parties need to be willing to do this. It can't just be all one-sided. When we ask why, and the only answer is, oh, because I love him so much, or I love her so much. Not the best answer. Is this a relationship that is worth saving? Was the relationship abusive? How is the betrayal being handled? Is it being handled like, oh, it was nothing and you shouldn't worry about it, why are you bothering me? Or is the betrayal such that you are just going to do it again? Is it something you're ignoring? Is it something you're worried about? Are you begging forgiveness, but you're not saying how things are going to be repaired or what to do? So we may have had a hand up So if you have any questions, you can put it into the chat and I will see it. Or if you'd like to speak up, you could say, excuse me. And then when I see the hand, I'll mention it, that it's there, and then you could speak up. So do you have a question you would like me to address, or something you'd like to mention at this point? Okay, so a lot of what I've been saying is that a relationship cannot be one-sided, and that a one-sided trying to fix it is not going to work. It may make you healthier, or whoever is trying to become more healthy, but that's not necessarily going to change the relationship or save the relationship. I hope that answers your question. Is it possible to get the relationship back to where it was? And I am going to say, why would you want it to go back to where it was? Where it was is what created the problem. And if we're talking about the very beginning of the relationship or the golden age of the relationship, that's also somewhere that you cannot go back to, because oftentimes that isn't even 100% real. That's when we're ignoring red flags. That's when we're just getting to know each other. So we don't want to go back in time. We don't want to go back to anything. What we want to do is build a healthy, stable, loving relationship. And again, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about lovers, friends, or family. The same rules apply no matter what type of relationship it is. So we need to understand that. Now, it's time for the 5 requirements of relationship repair. So the first agreement that you need to come to is you need to agree to either forgive or move past all past wrongs. What does forgiveness mean? Forgiveness means letting go of all hopes of a better past. Doesn't mean you condone anything that they did. It's not asking them to step on your head once again, or to use you as, to wipe their feet on your back or anything like that. Forgiveness and letting go of things in the past means that moving forward, we're not going to keep bringing this up. So the next time you get in an argument, you're not going to bring up this laundry list of what's happened for the past 5 years. If they're repeating a behavior, you point out that behavior and you say, look, this is the behavior that you're doing. This is not acceptable behavior. I don't know why my camera's doing that, but this is not acceptable behavior. So if you're going to continue to do this, then I need to walk away. Or they're going to bring it up to you. And maybe that's how you figure out, is it a compulsion? Is it something that you're so used to doing that it's thoughtless? These are things that you need to discover if you're truly going to repair the relationship. Number 2, so we're going to say he and she, just to differentiate 2 people that may be in the relationship, and it's easier to do that kind of a dichotomy, but it could be she and she or whatever. So is the other person willing to look at what they are doing that you do not find suitable for you, or that is hitting all your triggers, or that's making it difficult to move forward, the things that tweak you and the reasons why you don't trust them. So what you're looking for is that you both need to talk about what didn't work for you. So the first thing you need to do is be able to talk to the other person, and they need to be open and honest while they are listening. Open and honest. Okay, thank you. So what does that look like, being open and honest? It looks like you listening actively. What does active listening look like? Well, active listening looks like when you're having a conversation that you're not preparing what you're going to say in defense of yourself while you're listening to the other person. That is not listening. That is not active listening. That's very poor listening behavior. And it's something we all deal with. Active listening means that you can repeat back what they said to you so that they understand that you understood. What does that look like? You can always do the types of compassionate listening where it's it hurts me when you do X, Y, and Z. And then I would repeat back to you. I would say, so what I'm hearing from you is that when I am doing X, Y, and Z, that you find that painful or that you find that bothersome. And then the other person would be like, yes or no, let me explain that. But I'm not going back with, well, you were fine with it yesterday or any of that. You don't want to be belligerent about it. You don't want to be defensive about it. It's being open. Open means you are not defensive. Open means that you are willing to allow the other person to fully express how they were feeling. Now, number 3 is they have to be willing to do exactly the same thing. So you both have to be open and honest. So if in this discussion, we are both talking about, okay, in our past relationship up until this point, this is what didn't really work for me. This is why I felt alone, or this is what made me feel that I needed something outside the relationship to feel better, or whatever the circumstance is. But being open and honest allows you to start fresh on a very solid foundation, because you are not lying to them. And more importantly, you are not lying to you. One of the things that we do, especially women, but I know men who do the same thing because they are sensitive, and we both have masculine and feminine traits and masculine and feminine energies in us, where we take on and we try to explain away somebody else's behavior, or we will take on the responsibility of things that are not our responsibility. When we do this and we're trying so hard to be empathetic that we forget about how we're feeling and we're only concerned about how they're feeling, that is a sure sign for disaster. Although some people love to have a partner like that, oh, you completely understand me, that partner may feel very misunderstood. They may feel very unfulfilled in the relationship. The problem is, until it reaches a certain breaking point, they don't know what to do with it, because they haven't learned how to really express or even really look at how they are feeling. So that's something to be very cognizant of. One of the ways that you can look for this and notice it in people is by looking at people who are always like, I don't care, what do you want to do? No, I asked you what you liked. Do you like X, Y, and Z? And they're like, well, I don't care, I'll eat anything. That's not what I asked. I asked, what do you like? Well, I'll eat anything. Just because you'll eat anything doesn't mean you like everything. So what do you like? What are you in the mood for? And if somebody is so enmeshed with other people that they don't have any kinds of answers for that, I mean, it's all right to be flexible, but the thing is not to be so flexible that you forget who you are, that you're not part of the situation anymore. So you have the first requirement, which means that you have to forgive yourself and the other person involved and maybe the situation. Remember, forgiveness is letting go of all hopes of a better past. The second and third are being open and honest. Very important. Open and honest both of you have to be open and honest about what was not working for you in the situation when this occurred. And on a broader stance, what was not working for you in the relationship, period. It could be things like, I felt very left out when we would go out with your friends and you would be talking to them and you would leave me in the corner. And then you need to be honest. Were you leaving yourself in the corner, or were you being left out? Is it that when you sat at the table that everybody turned their back to you and they were all talking, or maybe they were talking in a language you don't understand, or saying all these personal things, memories they have with one another, and not cluing you in on any of the stories as to why they find that funny, or what happened, or when they developed that, whatever it was, that personal joke, that in joke. You need to look at it both ways. Are you doing it to yourself? And if you are doing it to yourself and you are trying to be, maybe you're trying to be the center of attention, maybe you're pouting because you want them to pay more attention to you. Maybe you're just a very jealous person. Maybe you're very insecure. Maybe you don't like being around other people. You like to be alone. You're more of an introvert and you're refusing to be part of whatever it is that they're doing. Do you need to socialize? Are you trying to pull them away from their friends or making them prove that they are choosing you over their friends? If it's any of that stuff, you need to be very honest about it when you look at it, and look at it very coldly for yourself, and they need to do the same. And only when you recognize what you're doing, only then can you come to an agreement and move forward and begin to repair. So if you're an extrovert and he's an introvert and he doesn't like any of your friends because he just doesn't like being around people, and he's only got one close friend and you have 15 people that you like to see on a regular basis, well, maybe you need to agree that you don't need to be together all the time, and he could stay home and watch the game with his buddy, and you can go out with your friends in a larger group. Or maybe he's going to go out with a larger group like once a month or once every 2 months to be a part of that, so that he still knows who you're socializing with, but you're not relying on him to come with you all the time. You need to be open and aware of what your needs are and what their needs are, and they may not match. You may go through this process and realize, hey, I really love you and I enjoy being with you. However, we don't match. We're not really compatible in so many different ways. So this is not going to work moving forward. And both of you need to be willing to admit that, if that is the outcome. Unless you're willing to walk away from something, you tend to conform to whatever that thing is. So for instance, if you're in a relationship, and you could be very committed in a relationship and still be willing to walk away from it. You're in a very committed relationship. Maybe the other person is insanely jealous. Maybe you're insanely jealous. If one of you can't handle that, the insecurity, and the other one is not willing to work on their insecurity and have the growth and do the work to be able to deal with the insecurity, then you need to being open and honest, both of you being open and honest, means that you both need to own whatever your part is, and you both need to speak up about the things that really don't work for you. Unless you're willing to do that, repair is not possible. I mean, you could patch it up and put a Band-Aid on it, but it might be a big gaping wound that needs to have stitches, or maybe you need surgery. You need to be willing to see who you are in the relationship and who they are, and they need to be willing to do the same. As I said in the beginning, if only one person is doing it, it may force a change on the other side, but it's not necessarily going to repair anything, and it's not going to be sustainable in the long term. At some point, you guys need to come to a consensus where you agree on what it is you want from the relationship, where you see it going, and what you expect in the future. So in order to do this, the fourth thing, and these things all kind of coincide with one another. The fourth thing you need to do is make a solid, firm agreement to be completely honest with each other moving forward. What does that look like? Again, you have to be willing to lose the relationship if it's not working. Does that mean that you just give up? No, it doesn't. But what it means is that if there's something that really is not working and it doesn't ever change, you have to be willing to walk away, number one. And number two, the reason why you need to be willing to walk away is because in order to have complete honesty, you cannot be operating from fear. When you're afraid of losing the other person, you often make concessions that create instability in the relationship. And by that, I mean, when you're not completely honest, when you're not telling them what is going on, when you're not honest about how you're feeling, you're not allowing the other person to know what's really happening in the relationship. So you're lying to them, basically, whether it's a lie of omission or it's a bold-faced lie, saying, oh yeah, that's fine, when you know it's not fine. You're making the relationship unstable. You're making the relationship unhealthy because you're more concerned with holding on to that person and holding on to the relationship than you are with being healthy and allowing them to be healthy and allowing the relationship to be fulfilling for both of you. So you need to have that agreement to be absolutely honest with one another and honest with yourself. I think that's one thing that we often forget, is being honest with ourselves is paramount, because if we're not honest with ourselves, there's no way we can be honest with someone else. If we're not examining how we're feeling and really looking at the way we're reacting to things, then we cannot express that to someone else. It'll come out like as an argument or as fear, where it's a knee-jerk reaction or an attack, as opposed to being something productive. It's completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. And I have seen relationships, marriages, and partnerships where there has been a major betrayal become stronger because that betrayal forced them to look at themselves and look at the relationship as a whole and really express, this is what I need. This is what was not there. This is how I'm feeling right now. This is what you need to do to build this relationship back. So you create guidelines for yourself and you create goalposts so that you know when you're getting somewhere. It cannot be all this nebulous, well, just to feel good. It's not my responsibility to make you feel good. And it's not your responsibility to make me feel good. That comes from within. The ability to do that comes from within. Now, things you do may help me feel good. It may help me feel better. It may sustain me in some way or support me in some way, but that is not what makes the relationship great. What makes it great is honoring one another. So the fifth requirement is that it's not about fixing the relationship. It's not about trying to get back to where we were. It's not about rebuilding the same old house. Obviously, there was something wrong with that house. That's why it fell down. You need to build a new house. You need to have a better foundation, and you both need to work towards having a more fulfilling life for both of you, or all of those involved, if it's a family or if it's more than two people. The object is to have a successful and fulfilling life ultimately, whatever that looks like for you. For some people, it may look like joining the Peace Corps and going to somewhere where the people are having problems and digging a well or bring electricity or doing something that's monumental. For other people, it could be as simple as making sure they're smiling every day so that the people who come across them are happier and feel lighter just from being around them. It could also be any number of things, but you need to figure out what it is for you. And then you both need to figure out what it is as a couple. What do you represent? Where are you going? What should it feel like? What should it look like? Oftentimes, when I look at a lot of these singles groups, or I look at people who are on the apps, the singles apps, I want tall, dark, and handsome. I want slim, fit, and beautiful. I want, and it doesn't tell me anything about the person. How about tell me about the person? What are you hoping to feel like in a relationship? What are you hoping to accomplish in a relationship? I would want to come together with someone and build a family and have kids that are happy and fulfilled and change the world someday. I want to be single for the rest of my life, but I have certain things that I want to achieve. I want to travel the world. There are a lot of things that go into a relationship. One of the most important things is you. So for you to fully be able to give yourself into a relationship, you need to know who you are first before you get involved with anybody else. You need to recognize what you need and what you can give, because what you're bringing to the table is just as important as what you're taking from it. Quick recap: 5 requirements. So we need to remember that change creates change. And we're talking about changing and growing and becoming healthier, as opposed to change for the sake of change. That's not helpful. You might stumble onto something that's helpful, but for the most part, not really helpful. So requirement number 1, you must forgive and choose to move past all past wrongs. You need to put that behind you. It's got to be in the rearview mirror. That means you could still see it, but you're not bringing it up and throwing it in front of you all the time. You're not, when you get into an argument, you're not bringing up stuff from 5 years ago or a year ago. Of course, if someone is repeating behaviors, you want to acknowledge that that's happening, and that comes with 2 and 3. 2 and 3 is the 2 of you getting together and choosing or deciding to be open and honest with one another, and open and honest with yourself, and to truly listen, to actively listen to one another when you talk about the things that are not working for you. Do you have a question or a statement? Okay. Being open and honest with yourself and with your partner or whoever the relationship is with is of utmost importance. So that's 1, 2, 3. Now, number 4 is you have to make an agreement for complete honesty moving forward. When things are starting to feel off, if you have a problem, if you're reacting to something, you have to be willing to bring it up and discuss it. If you don't, or if you're not willing to do these things, that's when things fall off the rails. And even if it's something where you're going to step back from an event and look at it, you need to talk to the person within 24 hours. It's got to be within a reasonable amount of time. You can't wait weeks and say, well, on last July 4th, you did this, that, and the other thing. No, because if they continue to do that same action and you didn't react the first time or the second time, there's no reason for them to stop what they're doing. The ball is in your court. You need to let them know that you're having a problem with it, because obviously they don't. Okay. So number 4 is complete honesty from this point forward, especially about how you feel, your wants, your needs, and where you feel like you're both dropping the ball. You may also want to set a schedule of a particular time, maybe once a week or once a month, where you sit down and you talk about everything, so that then you have a space where you know the time is cleared and you take turns. Oftentimes with the couples that I have counseled, I will have them have like a timer. So you have 2 minutes, you have 2 minutes, you have 2 minutes, you have 2 minutes, because inevitably there's somebody who wants to control the conversation and will talk over the other person or try to bully them into a corner. You always have someone who's dominant, whether they're dominant because of fear or they're dominant because that's just their personality. You generally will have that kind of imbalance in relationships, and you need to balance it out by putting parameters around it, like time. You only have this much time, or you cannot use accusations. And if you use accusations, you need to be willing to own whatever it is you're saying and be ready for the consequences of it. 5 is that you're not working to make things the way they were. The way they were didn't work. It was a falsity. You didn't have the foundation there that you thought you did, or something was missing. You want to move forward, and what you need to be looking for, your goal needs to be a fulfilling life for you and them, a fulfilling life for everyone involved. You need to be looking to become more healthy and putting more energy into the relationship where it belongs, as opposed to putting energy into resentments, putting energy into past hurts, more energy into these things that break down relationships. You have to be willing to be honest and be shooting for a healthy, strong, empowered relationship. You don't just want things to be different. You want things to be better. And you can do this. Even if better means that you're no longer with one another, that maybe you need to separate, maybe what you need is some time and some space, or maybe to recognize that this really isn't working for either one of you. As hard as that is to recognize at times and to really embrace, sometimes that's the healthiest thing. Sometimes you shouldn't be friends. Sometimes you shouldn't be lovers. Sometimes you shouldn't be together for whatever reason. And it's recognizing that the relationship may be harmful to one or both of you that helps you move forward. So those are the 5 requirements of relationship repair. Again, I am intuitive relationship empowerment coach, Geralyn St. Joseph. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one, you can just text me or email me. My information is below, or you can go to my website, which is relationship coach, G as in girl, S as in Saint, J as in Joseph, relationshipcoachgsj.com. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube and you like some or any of what you heard, smash the like button and subscribe. Thank you so much for your time. You have a blessed day. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like me to talk about, just put them below, or you can email me or go on Meetup. Mahalo.